Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Subcommittee on Ways and Means scheduled this evening for February 22nd, 2016. Will everyone please rise and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll call of the members?
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councillor Haas? Here. Here. Councillor Morabito is absent. Councillor Patch? Here. Here. Councillor Rotundo is absent. And Chairman Powers?
Here.
Here. A quorum is present.
The first item on the agenda this evening is a motion made by Councilor Rotundo that the mayor and the city council obtain an audit of all municipal offices to review appropriations of grants, the allocation of no-interest loans, as well as the operations and procedures of all audit offices in the city government as economically feasible. Further, that said audit be conducted by the state auditor as was previously performed on the DPW. Now, we all realize, I believe, that this is going to cost money. We also realize that we're a little short on funds. We have some deficits we have to correct. And before we go, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in favor of the audit. I think it's a great thing. It should be done probably more frequently. Yeah. However, before we get out there and start throwing large amounts of money around that the city can ill afford, I'd like to hear from the mayor's office as to what is available for an audit and how the mayor and he feels about an audit, and also the director of finance who's here, Mr. Anzoni. Omar, would you care to come up and...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way the mayor has been looking at it is not exactly figuring out a pocket of money and try to use that pocket or bucket of money to pay for an audit. We're trying to figure out what the need is and what the needs are, and then put them together in a scope and try to price them out. So if we have to tier it up, then we'll do that, and we'll propose that to the council as an appropriation request. If we deem it feasible in one phase, then that's what we're going to come to the council with. So at this point, I don't think we should focus too much on the amount of money that would be required for this type of audit, but mostly what we should be looking at and how it should be performed. And our position has been that the IG's office is not something that's necessary right now. It's something that is very specific to, certain conditions. If during the audit or at the end of it, there are findings that require more action, be it forensic or bringing in state entities, then by all means, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we thought we could start the ball rolling now by putting the scope together, selecting a vendor, and then coming to the council for an appropriation request.
When do you anticipate that you'll have your information all collected and be able to designate what departments you feel should be audited? Because there are probably several departments in the city that would not require an audit. They're small departments. There's no large amounts of money transferred through those departments. I think what we would be looking for would be, I know I as a city council would be looking for to go into the larger departments, find out exactly what's available in monies, and also grants. I'd like to see grants involved in this. I'd like to know, I would like, when we get our budget, to know exactly what's out there in grants, who's getting the money, how much the money is, what it's being used for, and let this city council, along with the mayor, make a determination as to if that money is being spent wisely. and prudently with regard to the expenditures of it.
Mr. Chair, that's definitely an appropriate concern. When monies are awarded to the city, they have a certain designated use to them. And unless we report back properly to the awarding authority, that use should not change. For certain grants, for example, that go through the council that need to be approved by the council, that use is usually designated and should be labeled so that you're aware of what that money is supposed to go to, so we can track it afterwards and make sure that through auditing practices that money is actually being expended for the uses that we as an administration have represented to the council and staff in the way they represented to the mayor's office. But there are also certain, so beyond the large amounts of money, there are certain practices that should be in place. Departments, for example, who handle petty cash or cash mainly in all their transactions, so have certain guidelines and certain protocols in place to make sure that that cash is handled properly. There are also other auditing practices that should be in place, but and we're definitely going to be looking at grants too. You know, mainly in the community development category, but other grants as well. It's going to be part of the scope. But what I wanted to go back to was how the mayor has been thinking about it, and it's a set of practices that the city should have in place that Mr. Anzoni and his staff have already put in place, but we want to make sure that staffers and staff members are respecting those practices and they're followed every day for every contract, for every cash transaction, and so on. So that's how we've been thinking about it. And when we come in for the appropriation request, we're definitely going to be providing the scope of the work that's going to be performed so we can sit down and talk about it and answer whatever questions the council may have.
Yeah, my feeling has always been that, particularly in the Chapter 90 money, that money should be used as much as possible for the intended purpose, roadways, sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. And if there's too much of that money being used for salaries of any type, maybe that's an area we should look at.
So, Mr. Chair, that money should not be used for anything but roadway improvement. In fact, Mass DOT would have to approve whatever list of streets or sidewalks or whatever type of work and repairs we're going to perform with that money. So I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Are there any other councilors that would like to speak on this? Councilor Haas?
I think Omar presented what the administration's position is. We should wait to hear from them. At this point in time, I'd rather wait to see what the mayor says. Thank you.
Councilor Granasso. Councilor Novoselsky. You look alike.
Do I look like an Arthur? They always call me Arthur. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's next.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Omar, I don't have a problem with an audit, but my issue is this overall, what specifically are we looking for in what department? Because there's many departments in here that really don't need to be audited. There's some of the so small, and they're not worth it. And I still look at the money, Omar. You know, I look and see what it's going to cost. I love that you want to put a scope together because I think that's where we have to go. But I don't want to be spending $250,000 in an audit of the whole city in 1 year. I don't think it's appropriate. You know, we already showed in DPW that we did, 5, 6 years ago, and for $25,000, they didn't find much. Were there procedure issues? Absolutely. But I think we know in-house what procedures aren't being followed. I think we know in-house who's doing the proper work, who's doing the amount of work that we deserve. And that's why I also kind of lean towards a HR department, which I know we're talking about. I know the mayor wants to see it happen eventually. But an HR department is the department that is responsible for that type of stuff, personnel issues, what the job descriptions, which I don't even know if we have 100% of job descriptions in the city for every single job, which I think should be a requirement that we have on hand. I know the union has issues with job descriptions for hiring, but, you know, I'm very cautious on an overall 100% audit. And I will be waiting to see what that scope would be. But I won't, you know, honestly, I won't vote for an overall, just carte blanche. I want to see a scope before I make any proper decisions on it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. Are there any other councilors?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Ganasso.
not being a member of Ways and Means, I just, it would be proper to ask one question.
Certainly, certainly.
Through you to the chair, to Omar. In reference to the review of an audit, was the auditor contacted? Did she feel comfortable with the situation? Did she feel that everything is being done according to general laws provide?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councilor Granasso, I'm not sure what you mean, number one, which
The auditor,
in-house, the city
the
auditor?
in-house auditor, does she have any concern about any chart of account in the, under her jurisdiction?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would let the city auditor speak to that. I'm not speak for her. And no, I'm not just talking about the city auditor, but we've had multiple department heads throughout the city who have expressed concerns, not just with financial practices, but also management practices. Now we're discussing the specific audit about certain practices that should be in place and certain financial issues, but folks have complained and have raised concerns.
Oh, okay, that's what my concerns were, is how, with the review, which I think is in order, by the way, is there a specific area that you feel needs to be targeted through the review process that you've had the opportunity to meet with the department heads throughout the city? And if you feel uncomfortable with what their responses were, or if you feel uncomfortable that they're not being satisfied, and then obviously an audit is required. That's all. That's the only nature of the question.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Omar, so am I hearing you right that you'll be coming back, or the mayor will, with a report on basically what you're finding and what departments need to be looked at, and perhaps we could put an OFP out on those departments to find out exactly what it's going to cost us?
Mr. Chair, you heard right. We're going to be coming back with a scope and an appropriation request in whatever form or shape we decide to put it in front of the council after we consult.
Yeah, I mean, I feel strongly about this. I believe that's a tool the man needs to operate the a budget that's approaching $170 million to operate effectively and efficiently here.
That is correct. If I may add a couple more points. We feel very strongly that this is public money. This is taxpayer money. And we feel that if we had to spend, and I'm not going to use specific numbers, but if we have to spend 6-digit numbers to make sure that we don't have any waste, any appropriate actions, any appropriate reactions from whatever city staff, whatever city department, that's money well spent. That's money that we can then use and turn around and look at the taxpayer in their eyes and say, there is nothing inappropriate happening here. Everything is according to proper standards and protocols. But again, I don't want to float any numbers here. We're not talking about $250,000 by any means, at least not now. If that is warranted at some point, that's a request that's going to come to the council for sure. So we're not looking for a carte blanche or anything, but we wanted to make sure that, and we've seen a couple of red flags, but we wanted to make sure that all the standards and procedures are in place, that there is nothing happening out there that should not be happening. And you're right, we have a hunch or two, but you can't figure out what the entire picture looks like until you dive into it. So, but we'd be happy to discuss the scope when we come in and explain or answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I know I see Mr. Anzoni, our Director of Finance here. Do you have anything you'd like to add to this, sir?
I do have these comments. One is the fact that the city is audited every year, the financial departments, they're audited every year by the firm of Powers and Sullivan. Previous to that was Melanson Heath. Previous to that was P. Malk in Maine. We go through a audit, and it's according to, which actually comes out in the financial statements are done according to GASB, the general accepted standard for accounting. So what needs to happen is that looking at it, and the financial departments go through a very grueling financial audit. It takes about 3 or 4 months, and what they look at is certain procedures and the way we conduct our business. The financial team has put together a number of procedures and policies, as Omar had mentioned, that are put in place, and that I know I actually headed the audit. I was the lead person in the audit for the DPW and under the state. There was a reason, some question or doubt at that point of how the DPW was running and what was happening there, and that audit had its conclusions. I believe that anytime you can get an audit is a good thing. I think an audit is a good thing. However, I do remember one of the auditors telling me, he said, the best description he ever heard of what an auditor does is he's somebody who goes out in the battlefield and shoots the wounded. But that was his idea. But I do think an audit at any stage is a good thing, and it makes sure that everything is done correctly and right. We welcome in the financial departments an audit. As I said, we have it done every year. We have a clean bill of health there as far as what has occurred, and that will continue in financial departments. There are certain concerns as far as grants and monies that I can understand. It's a powerful thing, because one of the that had been suggested is that one, track every one of our grants, what they're for, keep it all in one place, make sure there's somebody that's overseeing what is happening to the grants. And then further beyond that, there were suggestions in the past that we also look at what grants are available to make sure that we're going after all the grants. But those are my comments. Okay.
I just have one question, and it's something that always troubled me, and point of sale machines that we have throughout the city. I believe we have in some departments now. What departments are they not in that you would like to see them in, and how do we get to that point?
Well, I think they're in the major departments right now. At this point, they collect quite a bit of money, and we do that because, again, it gives it keeps track of how the money comes in, and the person is given a receipt for the money and for what they've done. And we have them in the major departments. To get to that point, we just be able to roll out some more machines, more POS machines, and then train the staff and make it available to them so that they know what they're using. But there are some departments that don't collect much money at all. I mean, they collect...
Well, let's just say inspectional services.
Inspectional services, we have one...
Clerk's department.
Clerk's department, you have one down there, Ashley?
You have one?
You have a POS down there. We have them in the major departments that collect money. So if we have to roll some out, and I agree with you, anytime you want to roll some out, we can get some more machines and look at it and decide which ones really need it and that don't have it. I can see why they're, look at their revenue that comes in by month, prioritize it by the amount of revenue. Naturally, the highest revenue income would get it sooner than later. But I think we have in the majority of departments right now.
Yeah,
I've
I've always felt that, it gives a customer, as I call a taxpayer, a customer,
Right.
a good feeling when they go in and pay $7 or $5 or 45 cents, whatever.
Right.
They get a receipt that's dated
Right.
similar to you would if you went to Market Basket or CVS or anyplace else.
So what's more important than that, and that's very important, and the other part of it too, what's more important is that when you have a POS machine, that actually brings automatically all those receipts and what they're for into the main general ledger. So you're able to track where your money's coming from. So that's one part of it that, you know, accounting-wise.
So by category, you would know where that money's...
We know where the money's coming from.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Are there any councilors that would like to have questions for Mr. Anzoni? No? Well, I guess that concludes that part of the meeting. And I think what we're left with is the fact that the mayor or yourself will be coming back with a schedule of what we would like to audit and how much it's estimated it will cost.
That is correct,
Am
Mr.
I
Chair.
correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. The second item on the agenda this evening is also a motion by Councilor Rotundo that the City of Revere establish an ordinance creating a municipal facilities fund in which 10 to 20% of certified free cash can be transferred to this fund on an annual basis. Does the mayor's office have an opinion on that?
Mr. Chair, would advise against that for the very simple reason that needs change from a year to another and every 5 years and 10 years. Putting something in stone or ordaining something like that, especially when it comes to very common management practice, is not very prudent. So the mayor has expressed on multiple occasions his desire to have a solid capital plan, but a realistic one that we can actually abide by, and not have a random list of wishes and desires. And we're going to act on that capital plan on a regular basis. And so this is something that's going to be presented to the council so that you're aware of what's on that list, and aware of the priorities as well. But I would try to avoid putting something in stone like the motion is actually asking for right now. So.
Well, we're taking a certain amount of free cash now and we're setting it aside. I think, was it 15%, George? 15%. Okay, so if you did the maximum on this, now you're taking 35% of the free cash and putting it into a fund, and it could possibly, it could very well be needed for something else in a particular year to supplement the budget. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, we would be hamstringing ourselves, correct?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you. I know I'm not a member of the committee, but hopefully I can, like Councilor Guanasso, be able to express their thoughts on this. This is a great idea, but I tend to agree with Omar that, instead of putting something aside every year, 10 or 15%, and then using it, you're really not gaining anything. But if he puts it in his capital plan, which we've seen in the past, but this buildings in this city in general and overall are deplorable. It's not that I like to throw anybody under a bus, but it has not been a major target for any past administrations to put money into these city buildings, except the last administration did some building repairs, new roof in the elderly center, new roof in the Legion, repairs to the high school. Even though there were tornado issues, we still did it. In the past, we didn't. This building itself, we're in a historic building that's literally falling apart. But, I think I have faith in the mayor to put in his capital plan what the major issues are and prioritize those which are needed to be done immediately and those on a long-term basis. But I've been in every single building in this city for various reasons, and I have not been happy, to say the least. So that's my thought. Thank you.
No, I kind of agree with you. I look at the building down at the youth center at 150 Beach Street, and the roof still has patches on it from the tornado. So I don't think we've been very aggressive in addressing that building. So what you're saying to me is that the mayor would come back with a recommendation on both of these items that we discussed this evening?
On the second item, Mr. Chair, the mayor would be opposed to it.
Pardon me?
The mayor would be opposed to the second item.
Opposed to it, okay.
Correct.
Right. Mr. Ranzoni?
As far as taking money out of the, earmarking money from the free cash and putting it into a special stabilization fund is something that I was never a proponent of. And I am a proponent of the 15% that we put in both the, because I was part of that decision to put it into the stabilization fund. And one of the reasons was at the time was because we didn't have any stabilization fund when that was put back in 2003 or 4, whenever it was. So at that time, Mayor Ambrosino and I had met with the financial markets, and they see a reserve, and they want you to have your reserve at a certain percentage of your budget, and that gives you a stronger relationship with the financial institutions because they see a reserve there for any catastrophic reasons that may happen. And the other part of it, too, is the fact that in some cities and towns have great reserves and some don't. We have a good-sized reserve here in the city, and it's been very important to us that we keep that up. If you put it into a building fund, you don't get credit for it in the financial markets. If you put it into a stabilization fund where you can utilize it in any fashion that you need, and you put it in the stabilization fund because not only the 15%, but any unused portion that is available at the end of the year, which has something that's been done, so that that builds up the stabilization fund, and you show more reserves. So that's the important part of it, is to show more reserves that are readily available to any needs of the city. If you keep earmarking these free cash or any type of funds, it doesn't show as sort of a free reserve, I guess you would call it, or reserve that's available. And if you did do it and you did have catastrophic, something to happen and you needed the reserve funds, it's going to take a number of votes of the council to get it out of there and move it and so on and so forth, an explanation. I would rather, in my financial opinion, it would be best not to put it into this type of fund, and for that reason.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, I think the first item will stay in committee. The second item, do you want?
One more thing on that second item, Mr. Chair. I wanted to clarify that there's a difference between a best practice and ordaining something that would be set in stone. As Mr. Anzoni just said, we're all for having funds that would be dedicated for very urgent and immediate needs. But putting it into an ordinance that sets it, be it 10 or 15%, really hamstrings us. It's not proper management.
I feel you're sort of tying the mayor's hands when you do something like that.
I'm sorry?
My own opinion is when you start telling you put money here and put money here and put money there, then every time the man needs to change a light bulb or something, you have to come before the city council to get money out of that facilities fund. So I'm
They have to be meeting every day.
Councilor Patch.
No, I just want to make a suggestion that the committee, don't recommend this to the board.
We can vote on it right now. And we put it out unfavorably this evening before the full council. Second to the motion? I can take the roll call, Ashley?
You would read the motion in the affirmative, so shall the Committee on Ways and Means approve this motion?
No.
Counselor Haas? No. Counselor Morabito is absent. Counselor Patch?
No.
No. Counselor Powers?
No.
No. And Counselor Rotundo is absent. The Ways and Means Committee will report this motion out unfavorably.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other items on the Ways and Means Committee agenda for this evening, that will conclude this meeting, and we'll go to our regular meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you.